everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64. I'm Gooey here with McKenna.
Hello.
And we've got another special bonus GoldenEye episode for you. We're in our golden era, and fittingly, we are joined by returning guest, our pal Ryan. Thanks for coming back.
Hello, happy to be here.
And we are excited because we're also joined by a brand new guest to the show, Nic McConnell. Hey, pal.
Hey, how's it going? I'm so happy to be here.
It's going good. We're happy to have you. We're happy to have both of you back. Two of our great pals over on social media. Blue Sky, I guess, mainly now. But first thing we like to do when we have a guest on for the first time, Nic, is we like to get your backstory with just the N64 in general. So what's your lore?
My lore, my origin story. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's so good to be here. It's so cool. I love what y'all are doing. It seems like you're having a blast. So I'm just excited to be even remotely part of it at all, even just on Blue Sky. That's been nice. Yeah. No, I was a PlayStation kid initially. I was born in 1983. So by the time that these systems were coming out, I was in my high school era, and I thought that I was kind of cool, maybe a little bit edgy. I had the PlayStation stuff, and I liked it. But I grew up a Nintendo kid. I grew up with the NES. And I didn't think much of the N64 for a bit. Obviously, I appreciated Mario 64. I thought it was cool, but I never really pushed too much to get it. I loved video games, but I never pushed too much to get it. I didn't have enough money to buy one on my own, but one day we were at Toys R Us looking for something or other, and my mom was like, "What is this?" Went over to a kiosk, and it was an N64 kiosk. This was in the waning days of the Toys R Us like pamphlets. You go pick up a little piece of paper and take it to the back of the store. And we man, these are good memories. She walked up to this kiosk, and it was playing what turned out to be GoldenEye. And
Wow.
I was like, that's pretty cool. And my mom was like, this is more than cool. This is incredible. This is just like the movie. Yeah. My mom was always interested in video games and intrigued. But this was the first time where she was basically like, we're getting one of these. We're getting one of these things right now. So it was because of GoldenEye that I got my Nintendo 64. We took it. We had a vacation the week after, and we brought it along with us to Hawaii. And I would sit inside of the air conditioning in the evening playing GoldenEye with my mom and my dad and my younger brother. Yep. Slappers only was the go-to because nobody but me and my brother could handle the guns. So it was just a bunch of running around in circles, slapping each other. And it was great memories. And so I wound up doing that for a while. And then from then on, the N64 became sort of my go-to gaming system for quite some time. I don't know. There's something about it. I appreciate texture in video games, not textures. Like the textures are pretty bad on the N64, but I appreciate games with a specific feel. And the N64 is nothing if not specific feel. So for me, it really is one of those things where these are games you can't get anywhere else. So I played the heck out of it and just kept going, but always came back to GoldenEye. So that's maybe my N64 origin story, my lore.
I love that. I like your mom was kind of in over her head because she was like, let's get this, and then couldn't shoot a gun.
Yeah, she blew it. She got a little out over her skis.
Like when you're describing it, I could just like picture that vacation. Like it sounds glorious.
It was pretty good. Not to make this a podcast about the vacation I loved, but I will say we played a bunch of N64. It was wonderful, and we watched a bunch of Space Ghost Coast to Coast in the evening. And it's
Nice.
Yeah, it was a good. It was a very solid week in Hawaii for me, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, we've been watching Space Ghost actually lately.
So good.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that sometime on the show. It's like it's perfect for this era of media, I think. Also thinking about what you're saying about your mom reminds me of my grandpa, who like got me
Mm.
into Zelda. He was a big fan of Zelda on the NES and A Link to the
Mm.
Past, and he was big into getting me into Zelda, on the future consoles like following that. And I remember like seeing him, he got Ocarina of Time, and I remember him playing it, and like he like couldn't even do it, like because like the 3D was like a whole different thing to him, but he like persisted still. Like I've got now, after he passed, I found one of his strategy guides he had for it, and then there's like notes like all over it and everything. So
Oh,
like I don't know if he ever beat it, but like he loves Zelda so much that he was like overcoming the 3D the switch jump from 2D to 3D.
that's really nice. Can I ask, do you know how he got into games in the first place?
I really don't. I wish I knew. Both my dad is not really a gamer. Like he can play stuff from his era, so he really likes like arcade and like NES games that he remembers. But his brothers, my two uncles, are like big nerds, and they like Zelda and other like they like RPGs and things like that. But I don't specifically know like where it began. I should ask them actually. I will get back to you on
Yeah.
that. I'll figure out whether it was them influencing my grandpa or my grandpa influencing them, because that is interesting to think about. I feel like it was more just it like NES. I feel like I hear a lot more about random people like they're famously like Robin Williams or whatever was a big Zelda fan.
It must have just been something that broke through to the mainstream, right? Like, I mean, again, my parents would try the Nintendo back in
Mm.
those days. I'd come down from being put to bed, as a 5-year-old, go to bed. It's 8:30, and I'd come down, and my parents would be sitting on the floor playing Mario. It might have just been a generational thing. They're like, "What is this? This is a huge deal." So
Hmm.
maybe lots of folks from that generation just decided to dive into video games and then quickly realize they're hard.
It makes
Mhm.
sense. GoldenEye would have that sort of crossover, obviously, too. Like this,
Hmm.
when people are seeing it, like this looks just like the movie. So I like, okay, we got your GoldenEye intro as well. That's cool. That's a cool way to get into it. Before we get into kind of our main event of the show, I guess Ryan, I also want to ask. We've kind of tracked a lot of games that you got right at release. Where were we at with GoldenEye when that came out?
GoldenEye was my I guess treasonous era of
Oh,
N64
in a villain arc.
playing as has been documented on this podcast. I got my N64 on launch day. Super super stoked for it. Loved it. And then as the releases started to kind of wane and I had, nothing else to do with my life and just wanted more and more video games, I hopped over like probably like early 97. I hopped over to maybe like summer of 97. I hopped over to PlayStation because I got my PlayStation a couple months before Final Fantasy VII came out. So in that time, I was playing like Tekken, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, all that stuff. And so like
For sure.
then I got like just super into PlayStation, and that just for whatever reason became like my go-to console for a while there. And so like Mario Kart, GoldenEye were games that like I would play, but like I didn't actually buy them at launch. Um I did get Star Fox, but yeah, but we played like a ton of multiplayer. Hi, Nick. Multiplayer, um, you know, Mario Kart and GoldenEye at
Hmm.
friends' houses and stuff. But like, I never bought them because N64 games were expensive and I didn't have like a ton of money. Like I had just started working. And so when I had like I mean, by this point, like N64 games were, you know, $60 to $80 of 1997 money, and there were already, by the time I got my PlayStation, there were already like PS1 games you could get for $20, like the greatest hits games and stuff. And I was like, I'm just doing this. Like, I'm just like full PlayStation guy, and that was like pretty much that time period, up until Ocarina of Time. And then like the Ocarina of Time hype was like so immense, and like I just did not care about anything else besides that game. And then I kind of just like, you know, I got Ocarina, and then there were just so many bangers around that time. Like you had like Star Wars Rogue Squadron in that time period, Turok 2, like all these games that I was like, okay, I'm like, the N64 rules. And then then I went back and picked up like used cartridges of like Mario Kart and GoldenEye, and then it was probably like a year after GoldenEye was out that I actually finally played the single player mode. But I played it and I was like, this is so good. And you know, I was like replaying on the harder difficulties and everything, trying to like beat my times and stuff. And then as is the case with multiple people you've had on the show here, that was also my gateway into James Bond films, which I had never seen one of before GoldenEye, because my impression was like they were just these like old things for old people. And it's
That's
funny
fair.
being like an old person now. Like I love some James Bond things. Like it's, I don't know, like I just want to watch James Bond movies and listen to Bruce Springsteen, and like all these things that I thought were so lame when I was like a teenager are like my favorite things now. So
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. Nick, are you a Bond fan? Like in general, or was it just a game for you?
Well, I was always Bond curious because my mom was a big media consumer. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's why my mom was so into all the games. She was a big media consumer. And she always enjoyed Bond. And so she'd sort of show them to me, and I had, passing interest. But when GoldenEye, the movie, came out, she was like, all right, this is the time. Like the first good Bond movie in, at that point, what, 20 years? So it was a big deal. False.
You're gonna
Okay,
start
wait.
some
I'm gonna. This isn't my opinion. I should be very.
Okay.
This isn't my opinion. This is my mom's opinion. I'll send you her address. You can go take it up with her. Wait, what was the last good one before that?
The previous one.
1989.
Oh, okay.
Absolute
All right. Fair
This
enough.
is a Dalton
See,
Dalton
maybe
pod.
Yeah.
Pro Dalton
this is a pro
space.
Dalton podcast.
Yeah.
All right. I apologize to Sir Dalton. I retract it. We can cut that out after, right?
Yeah.
I would
No, it's already
never
gone.
say anything bad.
On record. He's coming
no,
for
no,
you.
no. He's coming
No,
for me.
I know what you're saying.
He
though.
checked.
It's GoldenEye. It does reflect like GoldenEye. You watch it and it's like so sleek and so cool, like compared to, I guess just the public perception. You know what I mean? It does feel like you watch it and it's like Bond. It's the Bond. He's back and he's cooler than he's ever been. I think that is like kind of the whole vibe and like marketing of GoldenEye for sure. So I get it from the public perception for sure.
Totally. Yeah, and then totally. And right as like a 13-year-old, I was like, sure, okay, yeah, that's what I'm being told. I was clearly not told about the good word of Timothy Dalton, but I will fix that.
Oh yeah, you got it.
And now, yeah, I gotta make amends. It's important. It's important if we make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you have to make it better. So I guess Bond for me now is some sort of falls in the like, it's cool, it's fun as a film series. I like the Daniel Craig stuff, but I do think a lot of it is very generational. If you try to go back and look at some of the Roger Moore stuff, you can see the appeal. I can see the appeal, but I'm not sure that I wouldn't say I'm all in. But yeah, it was the game. It was the game and the music, all that good stuff. That's what got me going.
When the NES started releasing all these like boomer ass games, like there's like a Gilligan's Island game and
Three Stooges.
Three Stooges, and even like Fester's Quest, which came out before like the Addams Family movie, like made it relevant. It was like, this is just like weird old people stuff. Like, why are there video games about this? Like, they still make that? Was kind of like my perception of it. And then like after playing GoldenEye and like getting into the story, and like I played the levels so many times that like, you know, there's no voice acting or anything in the game, but there are like, you know, these like, there's like the you know, the mission briefings, and then there's like the text that comes up during like the cinematic moments, which is so weird to like go back and play that now, and there's just like someone's talking and it's just like across the top of the screen.
You have to just read it dramatically.
Yeah. And so like I started like just memorizing all of these lines from it because I was like so familiar, and like I didn't know who like Moneypenny or any of these characters were, but you can like totally pull out their personalities just from
big time.
You know, reading that stuff. And then by the time I actually saw the movie, like I felt like so connected with these characters that I was like, wow, they made a movie of this game that I really like. And there's like 15 that came before it. And then I like, it was still at the time when it was like kind of hard to like watch things unless, you know, we didn't have like, you know, streaming and like just the availability of literally everything within like 5 minutes. And so I like rented a couple of the movies, but what really got me was the TNT would do Bond marathons, and it was always on like holidays, and I think like Thanksgiving for sure, maybe Christmas, and they would just play Bond movies like all day. And like holidays, you know, were a time that I had like the availability to just like sit and watch the movies for like just like mainlining like 12 hours of like Bond. And and that's how I got into it. And I have like a huge soft spot for Tomorrow Never Dies because that was the first one that I went and saw you know, in the theater, because like at this point like I had the familiarity with it. And and then I pretty much have seen all of them in the theater, with a few exceptions since then.
TV watching, that's probably one of the best ways to watch Bond. That's how you had pretty much experienced it before, as we discussed. Yeah just catching parts of it on TNT, maybe
the Pierce Brosnan ones.
Big ticket movie. I think it's a good way to watch it, because I mean we even did in a lot of our, I mean we weren't watching it on TV, but we were watching it like you watch a lot of TV, where we're like, let's put on Moonraker and make some dinner and do our laundry. You know, that's maybe play some N64. It's probably one of the best ways to experience it. So, and we're experts now too on Bond, wouldn't you say?
We're fairly knowledgeable.
We're fairly knowledgeable. We could describe the vibe of all the movies. Yeah, I think. Yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies is coming up very soon on our.
Right, we still have to watch the ones that we haven't.
We haven't watched the other Brosnan ones. I have, but
chronology,
and you have in parts. So
yeah.
I can Tomorrow Never Dies, I think is funny because it's like it's a little bit less sleek and cool than GoldenEye. It is more like old school Bond, which is why I kind of like it. But
turning it back on you, you all, what's your favorite Bond movie? What's your favorite Bond era?
Favorite era? I think for me it is probably it. There's different. I think like the ones that I think are like the best are the Dalton ones, like for me, and like Casino Royale, GoldenEye are obviously like probably the top two. But like as for terms of like an era, of an overall era vibe, I like the Dalton, like the '80s sort of vibe. And then there's something comforting as well about the Roger Moore era of just like the goofiness. What about you?
Well, my favorite movie is Casino Royale.
Yeah.
But that's like the only Daniel Craig one I've really seen in full.
I think we
I've
just are
seen-
gonna watch those soon
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're like, I don't know, we're just like still itching to
I've
watch
seen, like,
more Bond.
parts of most of them, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the Roger Moore is like a comfort Bond. Like it's goofy and
Those are the best to just have on.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like Dalton's are like for me the best ones. I think to just sit down and watch. Like I just like that vibe and everything. But like Roger Moore is always we'll put it on, play some games. Oh look, he's in a crocodile. You know, like. Anyway, we talked at length about the movies. Let's get into. I want to talk about actually. We'll do the plugs up front because, well, Ryan, you've been posting over on the Standard Issue Gaming account. You've been sharing. It's been Golden Week at the time we record this over on the account. You've been focusing on Bond, or like I guess I've mostly just seen the GoldenEye specific games.
It is any game with GoldenEye in the title. Which
I learned about some.
which yeah, there's a range of them.
Did you know about the DS one? I showed you that screenshot.
Is this the one I heard about? The one Rod mentioned in
Oh,
like mentioned one in
Rogue Agent.
Okay.
That was like, I guess there was. Is it like, are they similar games? There's Rogue Agent for GameCube, was it, and DS?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are they similar? Like the missions are similar, or are they? Is it
Yeah.
one of those? Okay, it is.
It's wild. Like the DS game is like almost exactly the console game.
Okay,
Wow.
we'll have to
Yeah.
cover these. We'll have to have you back on. We'll like get into it more specifically. But I've been loving all the Bond content that you've been sharing. So thank you.
Yeah, I just finished your episode about the films.
Oh hell yeah!
Today on my commute to work today, so I'm in full Bond mode.
Full
right
Bond
now.
mode. It's always a good mode to be in. And then I guess for our main event of the show, I wanted to turn it to Nick. We've been watching your video game manual storytime streams, or like the archives of them. We've been catching on YouTube. They're really fun, and we sort of wanted to do a thing like that for GoldenEye today. But I guess I wanted to ask, like, what made you want to start doing that?
Sheer boredom, I think,
Okay.
probably is the start. Okay, so I went to school for broadcasting, and immediately after graduating, the economy tanked, and I got a job doing QA at Sony, at PlayStation. But I always wanted to get back into broadcasting or doing something and just sort of talking. And recently, I decided, I have a job and I do that during the day, but how can I at least practice reading, practice doing something like that into a camera, in a way that's not just sitting in my room by myself reading out loud. And I realized I have this room of a bunch of video games around me, and a bunch of them are old enough that they probably have manuals in them from the bygone era where people would put in manuals into their boxes. And I just sort of started reading them. And at first it was, purely a way to just practice and see it. And then I very quickly realized that these manuals are insane. There are so many just completely out of control video game manuals from different eras. They're wild and weird in different ways. You pick up an extreme sports game from the late 90s, and it has a very specific attitude, versus picking up like a fantasy style game from the Sega Master System, which has its own very specific style. And I just started having fun with it. So figured I'd put my my collection of video games I've maybe spent too much money on to good use, and start reading from the manuals on there. Yeah, now it's like my favorite thing. Now I don't even need the games anymore. When I'm looking online for stuff, I'm not looking online for games anymore. I'm looking online for manuals. It's kind of a my family is questioning me, but that's the story.
I've seen some of the lots you purchase and stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
fun. Ryan, I know like when you do when you post your screenshots and stuff, you usually also will like take photos of like the cartridge or whatever case and like the manual and all the stuff that comes with it. Like is there something about that sort of thing that you look for when you're doing that? Like what about, I don't know, I just love that era, that sort of, I guess I want to say ephemera, but it's not exactly that because you weren't necessarily supposed to toss it away, but pretty much all that stuff I did in that era. But I appreciate that you usually try to document that stuff as well.
Yeah, I think kind of similar to Nick. Like I have I have my boring career. That, not saying that yours is boring. Yours is actually, what you do is actually interesting. You work in the video game industry. But I have my own path that I went down, and so like, but I also have been collecting video games for a really long time, and I've always like, and I think like I think I've been like radicalized by like the collector's scene that's
Oh, no.
sprung up in recent years, where
That's
it is like,
maybe worse than being in Bond mode.
yeah, no, it's where like no, like just the idea that people are like buying these games and then sending them off to be like encased in plastic that you can never like
Oh yeah,
do
yeah, absolutely.
anything with. And that's becoming like the norm, and like all of these games are just like going into these like crappy plastic containers that that you're not supposed to open, and you're like not supposed to like touch the manuals or play the games, and you want everything in perfect condition. Like you don't want to buy something that has like a a sticker on it, or someone like wrote their name in marker, and whereas like I think that stuff is really interesting. Like I always, like, if I have an opportunity to buy a game and it has like a sticker from like some weird like rental place, some mom and pop shop in like Indiana or something that's like went out of business 20 years ago, like that's the version I want. And any game I buy it to like play.
Oh yeah.
And so I also like want to I want to take my own screenshots and put them out there. I want to take my own pictures, put them out there, because a lot of like quote unquote like content around like retro games is like people just pulling like whatever the top search on Google is, and so you just like end up seeing like the same stuff so often. And it's like, I don't know, like I wanted to put something that just like felt a little more like real out there, and and just talk to people about this stuff. So that's pretty much it.
That's why why I love the account is because I'll see a game that I love or we're talking about and I'm like, hell yeah, and I'll retweet it. But then a lot of times, like with the GoldenEye DS game, or even other more obscure games, I'm like, I love like finding out about like some part of gaming history that I didn't know about before. So it's a great account. I love the account, and I agree with you. Like some of the we've played every game except for GoldenEye. Actually, we've played through like for our episode on an actual cartridge, on the actual thing. And some of the cartridges I've bought, most of them have been in good condition, but some I bought where like the sticker is messed up or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know what happened to this, but I don't really care. Like, you've never noticed that, right? Like we just sort of have it to play the game. And I think, I don't know, it gives some of them character. Like some of them look like they've been through hell. A human used this. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I like is we pull up a game and it's like, Tracy has played this game or somebody,
Oh,
Yeah, the
Save files.
yeah.
My heart.
One of our upcoming
Oh,
games,
no.
like there's a guy who is killing this game, Don. Like shout out to Don, he loves racing games. But yeah, I love actual playing it on the actual hardware itself. But we haven't physically had the manuals for any of the games until I just got this GoldenEye one for the episode. But we have read through them all, and we've read some of the like Nintendo Power from the time and stuff. And I guess I was wondering, like, what's that been like for you? Does like actually playing it on the hardware and actually like reading stuff from the time, it gives it more of a, I don't know, tactile context.
It's what do they call it? There's a term for it, like in when you're doing research, the type of document. I forget what
Primary source.
Yeah, primary source. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see them talk about like upcoming games, like, before they fully know all the details. And
oh, that is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I always look forward to seeing the Zelda 64 talk in the Nintendo Power.
Zelda 64 is being hyped big time. Yeah.
Those skeletons.
The skeletons.
Those skeletons.
Yes.
Love it. I know, like, Nick, you're a huge fan of like the work Digital Eclipse does. You and I are always banging that drum on social media, and something I think that's really great about like their kind of like retro gaming collections that they've been doing is like you were talking about, McKenna, like providing the context for these games is just such a richer experience, because like you can play any video game in like 3 minutes now. Like you can go download a ROM, an emulator, like anything. You can just like, you can play anything. You can play things in like web browsers for like any game before like 2000 basically. But I think you can appreciate it so much more when you have like when you're playing it on original hardware, or when you actually like have the physical manual, or if you're like reading magazines. And like, I'm not saying like people need to go like spend a ton of money, because the market is ridiculous and like no one should be getting ripped off on this stuff. But like, if you do, like, you can do a lot of this stuff digitally. You can go and like, 5 seconds, I went on the Internet Archive and pulled up the PDF of the GoldenEye manual, and like, you can go on YouTube and watch commercials. You can download magazine scans and look through the Nintendo Powers of that era without spending any money. And I think that's like, you just get such a richer experience that way.
Yeah, we try to do that a little bit. I wouldn't say our show is necessarily educational, but I think it's more educational for us as we experience it. But hopefully we encourage other people to do that sort of thing. Or even in this, I feel like this episode now, we're sort of doing that a little bit. Which is something like that Nick, I love about your streams is like, even if it's a game I haven't heard of, like, it's interesting to think about like what went into, even writing the manual at that time. And I wanted to ask you, when you're looking for manuals, like what are you looking for in a manual?
It's a great question. What am I looking for in a manual? One, very cheap. That's important. It has to be very cheap. No, usually I'm new at that still to some degree. So I don't go out of my way to find specific manuals usually, although I did just buy one for a game called Lord of the Sword, but I bought that purely because I love the name Lord of the Sword. But usually I'm looking for manuals from, I'd say, a pre-internet era or maybe early internet era, where there's not a lot of other place for you to go to get the information the game wants to impart upon you. All right. some of that information is going to be really mechanical, right? Press this button to do this and this button to do this. But in that era, there were a lot of games that would also just be like, here's the opportunity to tell you the entire story and tell you the backstory of the characters and give you all this information. Because, maybe it's a real old game and it's abstract, and the best way to show you the story is by telling you in this manual and letting you fill it out when you're playing. And I like those because I think you can tell from reading a bunch of them that there just wasn't a lot of oversight over a lot of the manual creation process. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I think that there is a real freewheeling, loose spirit to a lot of them, that you do kind of lose as you get towards the, say, like late PlayStation 2, Xbox 360 era. Not all the time. You still get some wild stuff, but I'm really looking for the stuff where you could just imagine there's a person sitting there going, I've got a great idea for a story for this game that we've already made, and I'm going to graft it onto it. We did one for a game called Shadow Blasters recently, which was a Genesis game I've never heard of. And it's just a side-scrolling kind of platformer, and it is pages upon pages of the most out of control stuff I've ever seen. And it's a lot of fun. And usually when it's written like that, in that style, you also get a sense of the person behind it. You get a personality behind it. So that's kind of what I'm usually looking for. And when I'm doing the streams, I don't usually pre-read much, other than to make sure that I'm not just going to jump in and be like, press the A button to, get to the next page, press the B button to punch, that there's going to be some character to it. But sometimes I'm surprised. I did one for Destruction Derby on the PlayStation a few weeks back, thinking that would be pretty just standard, straightforward. Maybe we'd get some attitude or like a lawyer's blurb telling us not to crash our cars. But man, that thing goes hard. There are entire sections told in like a Southern accent. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's an incredible manual. So yeah, kind of open to whatever. But it's a lot of fun, a lot of good reading.
We're in kind of a unique situation with talking about the GoldenEye one, because you're saying how, like we were just talking about with Turok, like all the story is in the manual basically. There's some characters in the game you might be able to pick up the story from, but it's all in the manual. Whereas GoldenEye it has a backstory that you can learn about. It's a major motion picture. So I don't know. I want to say I appreciate you coming on and kind of doing. We're gonna let you do sort of your thing on our show, and I appreciate you offering your time and sort of doing that here. But I guess with GoldenEye, if you want to take us through it, actually, you talked about the back of the box. Do you want to start there and talk about the blurb that they give us? And
the blurbs that they give you. There's a big on the front of the box. Can't see it if you're listening, but on the front of the box, there's that gigantic Rumble Pack iconography. That might be my favorite thing of the entire package. It's just a gigantic thing with like the cool broken ground font that says Rumble Pack on it. I think that's exciting. On the back of it, they'll give you a little bit of a breakdown. This whole manual, I think, is interesting because it doesn't tell you the story of the game, but I think it tries to impart upon you that you're James Bond, and it's really like, it's a very funny, like you have to tell them that you're James Bond in 2 pages here. But I don't have a British accent, by the way, so this is going to really miss the mark probably. But you are Bond, James Bond. Can you hear me? If I turn my head?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You are assigned to covert operations connected with the GoldenEye weapons satellite. M will brief you on your mission and objectives from London. Q branch will support your efforts with a plentiful supply of weapons and gadgets. Moneypenny offers you lighthearted best wishes, and you're off.
It's good to know on the back of the box. Moneypenny's there.
It's important. It's like, listen, you've got a lot of support here. You got a whole team behind you. Don't be scared. Your mission begins in the heavily guarded chemical warfare facility at the Bailamori Dam in the USSR. I've never actually seen that word spelled out. Look and shoot in any direction as you navigate 12 interactive 3D environments. Use stealth and force as you see fit in matters of international security. Consider the military personnel expendable. You are licensed to kill.
Wow.
And then you get a couple of bullet points, all of which have exclamation points except for one. It says exciting 3D and which is like seems like an oversight. Exciting 3D environments. That's the one that
Exciting
doesn't have
says
it.
it all.
Exciting 3D environment. Yeah, you don't need the exclamation point. You already know it's exciting. You highly intelligent enemies with an
Like their
exclamation point.
IQ is.
Yeah. They're just through the roof. They're geniuses. Um, just gunning down a bunch of like Mensa guys. Numerous Q gadgets and weapons,
True.
and battery-backed memory saves game progress. So there you go. That's what you got. You got all those exciting things.
We haven't gotten over yet, like saving. Saving is still a big
Mhm.
feature. So
They're like you this is incredible. I mean, you just spent $80 on a video game. I guess it's probably a pretty good thing to let you know whether you're gonna have to buy another. What was it? What were the memory packs? 20, $30, something like that. They were not cheap.
Well,
My memory.
20
20
for the Nintendo
Official.
ones, and probably like
Yeah.
like $8 for the Mad Pats or Interact ones that may or may not work.
we're experiencing that right now. Memory card pains.
Quick question. So it says battery backed on there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Battery-backed memory saves game
I remember
progress. It's a weird sentence.
Yeah. I thought okay, I'm gonna ask the experts who have the Nintendo 64 podcast this question. But you
We're
better be able
lovers,
to
not experts.
answer it. I thought didn't N64 games have flash memory and not batteries?
Oh no. You know this, right? No, we don't know. We're not tech people at all. I'm sure there's a ton of people who know and are listening and are like, what do you don't know this?
Like I buy a lot of like old used N64 games, and they always like are able to save. Like I never have the issue like if I buy like a copy of like Dragon Warrior on the NES or something, like there's like a 50-50 chance that it's, the battery's going to be dead or not, and it won't be able to save. But on N64 games, I thought they used like a flash memory that
I hadn't heard that term ever referred to any N64 games. I've heard it for like, even up to like some like Game Boy Advance was battery.
Game Boy
right?
Advance. Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, that seems strange.
Looking at the internet,
Okay.
the internet seems to say there are some games with battery. I don't know if the cartridges, some of them had flash memory, some of them had battery, but I think the images that are showing up show a battery in like Ocarina of Time, and I see 1080 also did it. So it's possible. That's a good question.
Wow. Well, my Ocarina of Time cartridge that I have here from 1998 still
Fingers
saves.
crossed, yeah.
So I was just playing it a couple months ago.
This also made me realize that I've been uploading these episodes and I've not been capitalizing the E in GoldenEye.
Ooh.
Major
faux pas.
Yeah, I always feel I feel embarrassed when I have to when I make a typo in like something like that. Now I have to go back and edit it, and it feels daunting. I might just stick to no caps. It's stylized, right? That's not how they. Okay, hold on. I have to actually know this now. GoldenEye. Like, I want to. How do they do it with the movie? Oh, dang it! That is how they do it. Oh no,
Absolutely.
I'm so embarrassed.
I mean, they're kind of all in capital letters. The E's just bigger.
The E is big, yeah. Okay, so why don't we? Nick, if you want to treat it like you would your stream, if that's all right. You could just guide us through the book, except that everyone can interrupt you as however
that's all right.
If that's a fair deal.
Honestly, when I'm doing the stream, I'm like begging people to interrupt me because I'm just talking and talking and talking. I'm like, where am I taking myself right now? So please interrupt me. I'm begging you. It's because it's a licensed game. You start to get into this era, I think, of licensed games with manuals that I'm sort of seeing a little bit of, where some of the personality gets drained out of it. GoldenEye is, I think, right at the end of there still being some personality. And it's a rare game, so I don't think anybody over there would have allowed the personality to be totally sucked out. So there's not as much completely crazy stuff in here as you would expect from if this game had been made for the Sega Genesis in 1988 or something. But there are still some good things. There's one thing that I did want to call out, though, which I think is really interesting, is I remember growing up, people would always say the Nintendo seal of quality. It was like a little factoid that they would say, kids would say, it was like the Nintendo seal of quality doesn't say anything about the game being good. It's not a quality seal for the game itself. It just means that the cartridge works, that it's not going to burn your house down. Well, when you get to the Nintendo 64, you get the official seal is your assurance that Nintendo has reviewed this product and that it has met our standards for excellence in workmanship, reliability, and entertainment value. And so that I
That
thought
sounds
was
to
a
me like an
pretty
endorsement.
yes, that's saying every one of these games is good. Yeah, Paperboy 64, it's good. Got
So
the seal of quality.
I know the backstory on that was like that was part of the NES era, right? To sort of
Yeah.
combat the game crash. But
Mhm.
did they continue? Like I don't recall. Like N64, does every single N64 game have a seal of quality on? Okay, so
I believe they do. I believe that they do.
we have to reconsider then our like rankings of Dark Rift. And like this is a quality game. Nintendo said so. So
It's in there. It meets their expectations for entertainment value, among other things. I don't know when they stopped doing it. I'm looking to the side here. There's still a seal of quality on Wii games. So we'll see what they say about that. That would be a big stretch to put the seal of quality for entertainment value on every Wii game. I think would be a big stretch. Uh,
I want to see like
but
all
uh,
those like
but that's what they got.
weird games on the
M&M.
Switch,
Sweet.
the Switch
Oh,
marketplace.
yeah.
They have to
It's
have given up now when there's like 17 calculator games
Re-
on
Yeah.
the eShop.
Well, when were
Like,
you gonna say?
Oh, that like Wii M&M.
The
thing that you
M&M's
showed
like
me.
party game. All three M&M's games on the Switch or Wii, I mean, all quality games for sure.
All
Yeah.
quality stuff. All quality stuff. Yeah, I think the new seal of quality on the Switch just says you're on your own, and they kind of leave
Figured.
you to it.
Oh, one thing on this page we're at that I wanted to point out, because we did read this. We usually try to read a little bit before we play. Sometimes I don't want to read too much because, like, we were looking at Mischief Makers, and I was like, oh, this got like cutscenes in the man. I was like, let's just play the game. But we read through this, and one thing I think this manual will provide is awesome pictures of Pierce Brosnan as James Bond.
Oh,
best.
yeah.
This one right here
The
of
best,
him
the
holding
best.
the AK or whatever it is isn't even
Mhm.
it isn't even peak. There's even
It's not
better
the peak.
ones. Yeah,
The forehead is cut
There's-
up.
yeah, he does look.
Yeah,
cool,
that's
yeah.
right. He's got like the right amount of getting messed up for James Bond. Like he's clearly gone through a scuffle, but he's just fine. It's the perfect amount of sweat.
The moneymaker is still intact. You know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's lots of good stuff. The manuals always also get deep into, and I'm not going to read it because it's very dry stuff, but I do
Yeah.
appreciate how in depth the manuals go in terms of telling you how the controller works. I think that's pretty cool.
That's
Mhm.
been a crucial thing for us, honestly. For, and I think you said it earlier. You're talking about like texture of games and like the
Mhm.
feel of games, and that's. I don't think McKenna like many games we've played, even within the same genre, have like felt the same as other ones. Like I feel like in this era, like especially early 3D, like so experimental. You know, even we played
Yeah.
4 different first person shooters, and
Yeah, they definitely felt very different.
so like it's been a like actually important. Like we read the manuals for the controls often.
Mhm.
Some are kind of hard to parse, but some are very helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like you think about GoldenEye, controlling GoldenEye with the default controls versus controlling GoldenEye, or excuse me, versus controlling Turok, right? It's like completely different. They're inverse, right? On Turok, it's it's the C buttons that move you up, down, left, right, all that, and it's the stick that lets you look around. GoldenEye is the opposite. The language just wasn't there. So yeah, there you go. The edges hadn't quite been sanded off of things yet. And luckily we had manuals to tell us every single detail about how to engage with those those edges, which I enjoyed.
I played Turok left-handed mode.
Left-handed mode, just to make it closer
to switch it.
Is that where you use the D-pad to how does left-handed mode work? Oh, is it just like by using the stick? Okay.
You use the D-pad to move, and the stick is still to look around.
Okay.
So it's closer. It's closer to yeah.
That's kind of cool. And as a right-handed guy, I'm right-handed, and like using the right, that's the one thing that I never got used to. I love the idea of a trigger on the back of the N64 controller for shooting games. Like that feels so good, but it never quite felt right to me with the left hand because it's just not quite. Oh, I'm gonna change who I am as a person and start playing Turok with left-handed mode. I like that
change
idea.
your life, yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
It's so interesting that they corrected it, I guess, with the Wii remote and nunchuck, where it's like the exact opposite, and you're using like the B button in your right hand, and it's still like a trigger. And I'm just thinking about this because like yesterday and the day before, I was playing both GoldenEye on the N64 and the GoldenEye remake on the Wii, and I was playing with Wii remote and nunchuck, and then I was using the NSO GoldenEye or NSO N64 controller on my Switch, and like that is like so interesting and weird because you're still like it's still like it's your trigger finger, but you know which hand depends on the system.
Yeah, I think I'm so used to that Z button that it just makes sense.
Yeah.
They really hyped that. Remember that VHS that we watched? The Z button was
Z button. Yeah. The things full 3D movement.
That should be on the back of the box.
Anti-aliasing. But no, it's also funny. Like as Zelda people, I remember when the Wii version of Twilight Princess came out, and it was like Link, like you swing with your right hand because that's where the Wii remote is, and people are like, I'm gonna just wait for the GameCube version because Link is left-handed like he's supposed to be.
That's the lore accurate, please.
Yeah.
The world was mirrored, right? Like the whole game was mirrored.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. That's right. That's crazy. That's wild.
And then when they re-released it on Wii U, now it's the GameCube is the default, and then if you played it on Wii and you want to play it with that map, you have to play Master Mode, where you take more it's hard. It's like the hard mode. So sometimes when we race that at the Zelda Dungeon Marathon, there are certain people who are like, I'm gonna play Master Mode because I know everything from the Wii, and it's like they're kind of forced to have that challenge, Then you drop a Ganondorf amiibo on there, and it's it's tough.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Twilight Princess tangent.
I love Twilight Princess. That's my favorite Zelda. That's my favorite 3D Zelda game up until we got Breath of the Wild. That's my favorite 3D Zelda game is Twilight Princess. So
we'll have you on.
That's my toxic trait.
30 years when we're on our GameCube podcast.
GameCube podcast or the Wii podcast. Go through every single Wii game, and it'll take 1,000 years.
We've been joking about that one big time because there's so many classics, obviously.
Okay, so we're on page 2 of the manual.
But that's all right. Well,
what else do we got?
What's important, what we've got is the GoldenEye story, and the GoldenEye story is next. And what we get on the GoldenEye story is a wall of text, an important wall of text, but also importantly, a picture of Pierce Brosnan pointing a gun directly at you. You can't see it on the podcast. He's pointing a gun directly at you, and there are the flames of hell directly behind him. It is a threatening image.
64 flames.
It's so awesome. Yeah. This is the picture I was like hyping up earlier. Like this is
good.
There is another cool picture, but this is the best. This is the S tier of the pictures in the manual. So
this one's pretty good. I will say I also like, in a little bit of a spoiler alert, there's a picture of him gambling later in the manual, and I enjoy that one as well. I will say this, just as a quick aside, This is a T-rated game from an ESRB in a very different era, and my job is in age ratings. And one of the things that we have been beaten into our heads was do not have a character point the gun directly at the screen in marketing materials.
Okay.
I don't know if a manual counts as marketing materials, but you have to point it just off to the side. Otherwise, it's a no-go per the ESRB guidelines.
Well,
so
that
Pierce Brosnan is
makes me
going to get
mad.
arrested.
That makes me mad hearing that.
Yep. You can't get shot by Pierce Brosnan. So what's the point? What's even the point?
This is the coolest picture I've ever seen. So I would be really mad if it deprived us of this.
Just him just pointing just off to the side. It doesn't quite have the same
cool.
thing.
Not cool.
Not cool at all. But what is cool is the GoldenEye story. He says, "All right, 007." All right, 007. They sound frustrated to me in that. All right, 007.
Well, they are sick of his shit. If you watch the movie, everyone's
That's
sick
true.
of his shit. And this is from M.
Jesus,
this is
dude.
from M. So
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay. They should have maybe the original draft just said Jesus, dude. Okay. All right, 007. It's time to get down to business. Some time ago, Pirate, a top-secret combat helicopter, was hijacked from a French war vessel in Monte Carlo. Pirate was stolen by Xenia Onatop. She was assisted by several mysterious comrades. Xenia, a former Soviet pilot, is a known accomplice of the Janus Syndicate. Is it Janus or Janus? I forget.
what do they say in the movie?
John
They say Janus? I can't remember.
Janus? I'm going to say
Yeah.
Janus. It's the Janus Syndicate.
Sure.
And a Janus Syndicate, and an international organization that is world renowned for its dealings in top flight illegal arms. They are currently based in St. Petersburg, Russia. Pirate reappeared 2 days ago in Russia near the site of an unusual disturbance believed to be the result of the discharge of the GoldenEye weapon satellite. The situation is serious, 007. If Pirate or GoldenEye has fallen into the wrong hands, I don't have to tell you that the security of the free world could be in jeopardy. We want you to recover the pirate helicopter and get to the bottom of this. You are licensed to kill.
It's good to be
And then it
reminded
just says
of
M.
M.
Yeah. He like has to check in and like email right before he's like, by the way, just quick reminder, am I licensed to kill on this project or no?
The game is a lot harder otherwise.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
it's actually an important distinction. If you had watched the previous film, License to Kill, where his license to kill is revoked.
Oh boy! This is the context I was deprived of when my mom wouldn't let me watch the other James Bond movies. She told me they were bad, and now I didn't know.
You didn't get the backstory.
You need that clarification. I won't even spoil the scene where where he has to turn in his gun,
it's
and
so fucking awesome.
It's and he loses his license to kill. Which he does not take that feedback when he's told that he's off the clock. It is actually my favorite scene in any James Bond movie.
That's right.
It's so nerdy, and I love it so much.
Yeah, just go look up that scene if anything, but you should watch the movie.
You should watch both movies.
I should just watch it.
The one thing about this page and this story that I really like is actually by the time they're done describing it, it's like 8 levels into the game. Because you like there's so much backstory that this is described. Like you start, the first handful of levels are like 8 years ago, 3 years ago or whatever. And then like this point is, we're up to surface, I think is the level where like the helicopter is turned up in Russia or whatever. So that's like, that's like 5 levels in, I think.
There's a nice seal. The top right of this like letter, the seal.
Does it say like, I don't know what that means, the text there, but doesn't it say in the game it says like, oh, Honor Majesty, it says OHMSS next to that seal? So I don't know.
British
Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, this is what we need Jamie back in here for. Great page. This is a top tier page for sure. Does it
is a top tier page. It will go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say. Then it talks about the controls some more. It's like they're like I like they pepper in stuff. You know, they're like, okay, we know the controls are boring, so here's Pierce Brosnan. He's on fire. He's shooting at you.
You've got to have ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys to your storytelling. Some pages you're going to have Pierce Brosnan shooting you in the face. Some pages you're going to be learning about correctly inserting the GoldenEye game pack into your Nintendo 64 system. They do give you a lot of information, which again I won't get into here, but I do like that they tell you to correctly insert it. When the title screen appears, press the Start, A, or Z button to view the main menu. So they're giving you lots of options. They tell you a little bit about options. Just do this the way you need to, man. Enjoy the game your way. I think that's wonderful. It's wonderful. Leaning and ducking. So here's a secret that I'm going to share right now. I actually didn't realize, and I've played this game quite a lot, and I am 40. So I've been playing it since it came out, basically, and I'm 40. I didn't know you could lean or duck, which the manual is telling me that you can do. So I've been playing GoldenEye without leaning or ducking, using the L or R button and pressing the C buttons.
Ducking, it's a tricky maneuver, right? Can you even remember how to duck?
What is the distinction between these two? Is it
leaning and ducking?
Is it just like
leaning is when you're aiming, like you could be behind a wall and aim at it and then hit the right stick and you'll like pop out.
Okay.
Ducking is when you go into odd job mode.
Is like a...
Ducking is hard to do because you have to aim, hit C down, and then let go of one of the buttons to like stay down.
Yeah.
But if you let go of in the wrong order, you're standing again, and it's like hard to do on the fly.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing it in multiplayer.
Yeah.
Slappers
honestly, I so rarely aim in this game that this does not even affect me in any way.
Aim's there it's for the advanced players for sure.
Yeah.
There are very few games that let you get yourself into a terrible situation and compound it as much as GoldenEye does, because you'll be trying to duck or trying to lean, and then you do the wrong combo, and then you start getting shot, and you panic, and you press the pause button, and you slowly look at your watch while you're getting shot
a bunch of times
the whole time, and then you step out of it, and you're still there. It's a game that hates you in some capacity.
No one is brave enough to make a game like that anymore.
No,
we need. Yeah, I wish someone. That's why the GoldenEye series, it's fallen off. They could probably resurrect it if they had clunky watch mechanics brought back.
I mean, I would argue there have been some games with similar vibes. Did anyone play Zombie U?
I was just thinking of that.
Oh,
I was
God.
gonna bring it up.
Yes.
McKenna loves this game.
Oh, awesome!
It's
My
so cool.
my wife is
game.
also a huge fan. It's her favorite like Wii U game.
I was so disappointed. They like started developing a sequel and it got canceled. I was very disappointed.
Did you feel that way while we were playing GoldenEye? This is reminiscent in any way?
Maybe a little. It's a lot more tense in Zombie. I mean, it's a horror game, so it's a bit different. But a similar concept.
For sure, yeah.
Like, because you have to like dig into your backpack to like get things and like get items in the same way like in GoldenEye, like you have to like pop over to the pause menu to like switch to like a camera or something. And so it makes me think of Zombie U when you're actually vulnerable the whole time you're digging in your backpack in that game. Whereas GoldenEye, it's like 3 seconds maybe that you're vulnerable while you're like pulling up your watch, and then you're like good once you actually get in the menu. But I don't know. I guess like the Dark Souls games and stuff, like you can't pause it and stuff, but that just feels mean, like for adults. Like I mean, especially like if you're an adult with like a child.
Oh yeah, true.
I think there's like a tweet that went viral when for one of the games about some guy who was like, oh, I couldn't pause the game, but I had to get up and take care of my kid.
Yeah. I was just playing it last night and I opened a chest and it ate me and I died. I was like very upset. No, I wasn't. I actually it was hilarious, but I was like, it's time to go to bed now. Okay, what else we got here? Are we?
Well, we got a lot.
We know the controls. We're good.
I mean, it's up to y'all. I think we know the controls. We got a rumble pack. We got a creating a game file. You got all the kind of the core components of getting going. James Bond setting up his like workday account so that he can get going on his session. Erasing a save file, but then you get to the selecting a mission, and I like this. If you go to the selecting a mission page, mission game, page 10, please turn to page 10 in your manuals for GoldenEye.
I love it.
You get to the background section, and I just like there's like a little bit here that I enjoy where it tells you, your missions will take you all over the world. They're kind of getting you excited, which is something that a lot of the manuals did. It was sort of like, hey, this is actually cool. I know you just read a bunch of stuff about deleting save files, but your missions will take you all around the world. So make sure to read the background information to keep current on the pending mission. And in the game, there's like a lot of text that you have to go through. So they're telling you the truth. But then I like that they tell you when you begin a level, make sure to pay attention to the opening cinema scene as it may contain useful clues to help you solve objectives. And I had to think about what that meant. And I'm realizing, does that just mean the things like when they're showing you stuff, it's like, here's a picture of the dam, and then it zooms into GoldenEye, I said, into James Bond head. Is that what they're referring to?
I guess
the opening cinema scenes.
Sometimes the
Either way,
shot will show you like maybe something related to one of the objectives, but then other times it's just like guys in a hallway. So it's not like it's not like Skyrim or
I don't
whatever.
know if this is the case for every level, but I noticed at least the first one that the opening cinematics change. Like they're not always the same. When
That's
kind of
cool. Yeah. If you really want to know like what to do in the level, like you got to read these briefings from the characters, and they don't. It's kind of fun. You kind of have to like. It's almost like it's not quite a riddle, but you have to sort of figure out what they're trying to tell you to do. And there is we said there, we sat for minutes sometime reading, the briefings. Like you really have to, if you want to know, like really want to know without looking at a guide or something, you got to commit and like read it. And try to read it in a British voice when you're doing it. I highly recommend that.
Okay. That's half of the game right there. That's half of the game right there. Yeah, I did that today. I was playing a little bit of the game today, and I realized that I did not do that. I just dove in, the dam, which I love, and I dove in and very quickly realized I'd made it through halfway through the level without having read any of the important information, and I was on one of the higher difficulty levels, and I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I had missed all of the important things along the way.
Alarms.
Yeah.
As I discovered eventually, I had to blow up the alarms, but by then it was too late, and I had killed so many people in service of what?
Her Majesty.
Her Majesty, yeah. You're licensed to kill, by the way. By the way, you're licensed to kill. Sometimes you got to, though, because you can run yourself into a mission failure on accident, So
it's so easy to do.
It's important to read those.
Thinking about those, like, the kind of, like, flyovers before the missions, I know on your GoldenEye episode, you were talking about, like, how you get to see James in his different outfits. That's why they want you to pay attention,
and
that's a highlight. But I was thinking about this book here is so good, the boss fight GoldenEye book, and in there's a part where they're talking about like how the different objectives in the levels were inspired by Mario 64, and like you're going into the levels, and there's various like tiers of difficulty based on what objective you're doing and what you're going for. And in Mario 64, you do, like, when you choose the star that you're going to go after, the camera does kind of do that same like flyover type thing where it's like, hey, you better pay attention to like this ledge up here for this objective. And I wonder if like that was maybe the intention of those scenes, but as we were kind of saying, like they don't like really help in most cases, but if that, we also know that like this game was just had a very tough development where they kept like putting in features, taking features out, like up until the game like went gold. And in the book, in the making of, we do know, and we'll get to it, there's stuff in the manual that is not true because the manual was done before the game, and the manuals were probably printed before, like, I don't know, the third or fifth time that the game was delayed again.
Wow.
And so there's stuff that made it into the manual before the game was ready, because they were like changing things up to the very last possible minute.
So we're gonna call them out on their lies as we go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're wonderful lies, though.
I think too. Also, like the hint. What qualifies as a hint at that time is probably a little bit more vague. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, I guess I'm thinking even earlier generations of games like NES, like a lot of like games where you got hints and had to figure things out would be a little cryptic. You know, so like,
oh yeah,
this is not. Maybe they haven't told. We're seeing that a lot, I think, as we go through some games where I was talking about the saving, where they haven't fully, gaming hasn't fully shaped into like kind of the how we know it today, you know. So we were playing like Doom, and you're saving, but you also have password saves as well as memory, you know. So I think that might be some of it too. Like hints could mean anything, you know. Let's see where they lied throughout the manual.
Oh yeah, well, one thing that they did, it's not quite a lie, but I would consider it criminal, is that on the mission page on page 11 there is a picture of Pierce Brosnan holding a gun, but if you look above next to the M briefing, there's just a bunch of empty space essentially,
what's going
where they
on?
could have used another picture. Yeah, they could have used another picture of Pierce Brosnan.
There is actually one, like
I guess in the background. In the background.
Yeah, he could be pointing the gun
picture.
maybe a different direction.
Just
the
sheer amount of pictures of Pierce Brosnan across this 2-page spread. Like, there's the picture in like the lower right corner, which is actually the picture that's on the briefing in the game. It's just a black and white version, and then you have like in the background faded, there's that picture of Pierce Brosnan with the machine gun that we saw earlier in the manual.
If you're looking for good thumbnail art for your GoldenEye podcast, like they really did a lot of good, even for the movie. There's like different him posing with Natalia or Xenia or what, like they got everyone. It's like when they're doing family photos and like, okay, now the grandkids, like they got every combination they could. There should have been more like buddy shots with Sean Bean, I think, though.
Ooh, sore subject. But I feel like the thinking behind this manual was like very like Poochie-esque. Like when someone turns the page of this manual, if they don't see Pierce Brosnan, they need to be asking, "Where's Pierce Brosnan on this page?"
Yeah, actually, now I'm seeing it. It's subtly in the background of every page has him in it.
Yeah.
What am I reading? What is this manual for? I don't remember. You do get a lot. You get the M briefing. M will provide you with more detailed background information. And then Q branch will say, aside from even more background information, Q will give you the lowdown on any handy gadgets that you may require for that given mission. And then Moneypenny on the next page, it says, don't forget Moneypenny. I feel like that's very plaintive and they don't intend it to be. Don't forget Moneypenny. For each mission, she'll wish you well, providing you with lighthearted comments. And then you get the objectives. And this is a favorite thing of mine in manuals of the era, is just sticking it to other video games and telling you what this game does that other games don't do. It's in all other words, and I like this. Unlike other first-person perspective games, the object of the game isn't necessarily to destroy everything or everyone you come into contact with. Some people or objects are necessary to complete the mission. Shoot the wrong person or destroy the wrong computer, and the mission could be a failure. Make sure to read through the list of objectives before each mission. The fate of the free world depends on it. But I really like that. Unlike these other games you've seen before, this is real.
We're looking at you, Doom.
Yeah, I feel like this is such like a Nintendo thing, like because I feel like there's always like any like interview like from like this era or beyond or previous, like any interview you have with like Miyamoto or at when he was with us, like Iwata or any of these people who are like talking about, Nintendo never really mentions the competition, but they like acknowledge that there are other video games in the world, but they're always like, well, in other open world games, they've never really like fulfilled the promise of like a true open world where you could go anywhere, but like in Breath of the Wild, like those kind of like
shade.
Yeah. And I mean most of it is like they have good points, and I think like this really is a good point that they're making here, and they actually maybe it like did need to be said. Like you
big time.
Like you are going to be miserable if you don't read anything and just try to like just kill everyone, and then you're going to get to a place where you're like, what do I even do in this game? Like you really do have to kind of like think about what you're doing and read the briefing, James.
You have to listen. I mean, like, it is a major part of the game's staying power for me, at least. I actually was not. I like the multiplayer, but that's not what drew me to this game and kept me coming back. It was the single player. I liked the campaign, and part of the reason was you could beat it over and over and over again, and going back at a higher difficulty level was a different thing. The first time I played the game on the dam, I just did the jump off the. You're like doing tourism in the easiest mode on the dam, right? You're just like, I'm gonna go jump off the dam. And then you bump it up, and it's now you got to blow up those alarms, and then it keeps adding to it, and you keep going back, and you keep getting better at the game. It's part of the reason I like Time Splitters 2 so much. Also, similar, same thing, so same crew, a lot of them, but same sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, they try to be polite by pointing that out compared to other games in there.
Numbskull.
Yeah. Listen up, idiot. It's different than those other games you were playing when you were a baby. This is different, but it's true. It's an actual thing. But that leads us to a really exciting screen and a really exciting page in the manual. And we discussed it earlier, but it's James Bond gambling. He's pushing a card forward, and and I think it looks fantastic. I think this is my favorite picture of the entire manual.
I can see that.
It's pretty good. It does
fill in the gaps because there's no gambling in the game, which I feel like is such a crucial element of James Bond. Like most of the movies have gambling in it in some form, and there could have been a mini game. Come on, Rare.
Yeah. We got to get him back in.
We know you were struggling to get this game out, but
just one more feature,
guys. Herculean feat.
And you just picture like Martin Hollis going to like Ken Lobb, and he's like, "I know the game is 2 years late, but
need Baccarat,
poker."
Just Martin Hollis talking to the team, being like, guys, we can't put the poker game in here, we can't do this. And then a minute later going to the Stamper brothers and being like, okay guys, listen, we just need another year and a half, it's fine. What this game has, so we are starting to get to the era of the manual, and where we start to see, I think, some discrepancies between reality and what the manual has in store for us. It's not a major thing, but on the Bond Arsenal page, I'm not going to read through all of the weapons because there are a lot of weapons listed here. But I was looking for the Klob. And if you look for the Klob, you'll notice that there is no Klob. And as a big Klob head, to me, the Klob is the best weapon in the game. And I will take zero feedback on that. by far my favorite, and it's not here because, as we learned, it used to be called the Spider. Um, and I think
Wow.
the Spider, right? Yep, the Spider. And it was the modern variant of a Czech machine pistol, small but capable of automatic fire and editorializing. Awesome. Apparently, they had it as Spider, and then right after they went to print, they discovered that that was the name of, I think, a paintball manufacturer or something.
Oh.
So they had to change it, and they gave it the name of the Glob, which I thought was pretty cool. So that's the first lie that the manual tells us.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, it's in honor of serving. We're big lob heads for sure on the
Oh, yeah.
podcast.
Oh yeah.
We've discussed him at great length at this point.
Oh yeah.
So I it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We know the truth. We know the manual lies, but we know the truth. It's the Glob. Which brings us to the game over screen. You get some stills of a Bond and some other
The
actors, which
picture
is
from
fantastic.
The previous page actually had the buddy picture
Yeah.
of him in 006, which I appreciate, but then they've got it again here
Yeah.
on this page.
They only had so much to work with, I suppose. Movies with big budgets, they only take 5 or 6 pictures for marketing, so this is what
Yeah.
they had to go with.
Mhm.
Too many hits from unfriendly fire could prove fatal. That's just a life lesson to keep in mind. It will also mean game.
Any game.
any game, really, anything. It will also mean game over. If this happens, you'll return to the background screen where you will have another crack at the mission. Make sure to pick up the body armor. While the body armor won't make you invincible, it could give you protection you need to complete a mission. That's a nice little hint that they have right there. I like that.
I think they're missing out missed opportunity here to reference Boris.
Yeah.
Oh
When we
yeah.
talk about being invincible.
You'll be invincible.
Come on, they could have had. There should have been a picture. There's not
no
been
Boris.
No
any
Boris.
Boris.
Manual.
No Boris.
Wow.
This is kind of fucked up. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
I'm not going to stand for the Boris erasure.
Yeah. Okay, so interesting here. When it says you will return to the background screen, background is capitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Is that what they call that screen? Is that just what they call that in their like game
Do they have
Bible?
like a patent on this or something? Like,
The patented background.
Is it-
I don't know.
is that like some like deep
Oh
James Bond lore?
no, I don't believe so.
Like,
Yeah, maybe they couldn't call it the mission. I guess the mission screen gives the overview of the missions, and then you click on the mission, and that's the background screen, because that's where they're giving you background on the level. I don't know why it's capitalized, but they should just called it like the briefing page or something.
I always thought it was the briefing page. Maybe the manual's lying to us. I don't have the game plugged in
That's
right now.
true,
Maybe the
that's
manual's
true.
lying again.
That's a high possibility.
The manual's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
it was written by 006.
Trying to deceive us. That would be a good way to do a manual, is to have it written by the villain. That's gotta exist.
It's
right?
got to.
If not, if there's some indie game developer listening, put that in your game.
We've got friends, enemies, and villains. And I think these are good. I think these are helpful. This also gets us a little bit of that Boris we've been craving, just a bit, a little taste of Boris, which we've been wanting so badly throughout this whole manual. You get Natalia Simonova. She's a computer programmer based at Severnaya, and she's the only survivor of the terrorist raid. Valentin Sukovsky, I'm going to get in trouble with pronunciations here, a former enemy of Bond. He has become a black market trader in arms and information, in the New Russia. 006 or Alec Trevelyan. This guy's great. He's a fellow 007 agent or 00 agent. Bond trusts his life to Alec Trevelyan, and that's fine. And I think he should continue to do that. It's a good choice. It's a good judge of character.
Yeah.
Then you've got Defense Minister Mishkin, who's a patriotic member of the Politburo. Then we get our enemies. I forgot. I still don't know how to pronounce this. Yanis Janice. We will we'll learn this one eventually. The shadowy leader of the word again, the Janus Syndicate. Then we get Xenia Onatopp, a
Or Janice.
Janus lieutenant. She is a hotshot pilot and a crack killer who enjoys her work. Oh, is that a pun? Crack killer because she snaps their necks?
She does enjoy her work. That's very
She does.
obvious when you watch the movie. Yeah.
Extremely.
I want to say, sorry to go back real
Yeah.
quick. This implies, it says that Natalia is the only survivor of the terrorist raid.
More Boris erasure.
Yeah, well, that I didn't even think of that. I was thinking in the game, there's not maybe there is a raid. It's different than in the movie because you don't just find her blown up or like she doesn't blow up and run away. It's you're there and she's in jail, and so I guess you could say like the base has been raided and they've thrown her in jail and you escape. But the only survivor then implies like Bond is the one killing everyone to escape the base. So it's different in the movie. She survived an explosion, EMP, whatever explosion, but now they're saying she survived Bond's slaughter of everyone who works at the they're really describing the movie more than the game is all I'm saying, but it gives it some dark implications about the game, I guess.
Okay, I want to pause for a second for some Yanis clarification.
Please God, yes.
It is Yanis, pronounced Yanis, which we all should know as Greek history buffs, maybe Greek. I don't know. But it's,
I only know it because they point it out in the movie.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, just like the mythological. I'm like, yeah, I know what that is for sure.
It's a two-faced god who simultaneously looks at the future and the past, as well as being the master of beginnings and endings. The two faces of Yanis are a constant theme in GoldenEye, as Trevelyan sustains burns to his face that give him a double face appearance, falling in line with his two-faced and traitorous nature.
He's one of the top two faces in media for sure.
That's pretty good. That's really good. So Yanis. So we got Yanis. Yanis. We can say it now. The problem is now that we know it, I don't think it comes up again in the manual. But I'll make sure to use it in my life in other places so that I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
But no one's going to yell at anyone in the comments now because we've
That's right.
it. No one,
unless
one's
they got so mad they stopped listening.
Maybe.
Like they don't know Greek mythology. Turn it off.
Maybe Greek. Unconfirmed.
Sorry to the Greek people.
Generalized
and the British.
mythology.
Yeah. Just a blanket apology to all people of all time.
Sorry to the world on behalf of. Well, this is about an English guy, so actually not sorry to them, but on behalf of England and America, I want to apologize to the world.
That's right. Just apologize. We'll get a list by the end of the episode. We'll have a list of people we need to apologize to, and we'll just we'll end it that way, I think.
We'll do like Miyamoto wanted to have James Bond go and shake the hand of everyone he killed in the game.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's so cool. I think that's such a cool idea.
They kind of did
better if it was.
They kind of did it in a way.
They did, yeah.
Because they have it as like the cast starring. And it's like, here's all these dudes you shot.
It should have been interactive. Like you're in the hospital, you go press A to talk to everyone,
I feel like it's a major missed opportunity in like the 15 times they've tried to like remake this game that no one had the courage to just be like in credits of GoldenEye Rogue Agent. Like you're going through and you're shaking everyone's hands. Like we're doing.
I'd be like, we're following Miyamoto's vision.
Yeah.
Did we read everyone?
We haven't read everyone. No, I mean we still got a few folks. We just don't have any more. Yanis. We do have one more. I get to say it one more time.
We're safe.
General Arkady Urumov, a traitorous Soviet officer in league with the Yanis Syndicate. Here we go.
Yes.
Here's our guy. Here's our boy, Boris
Yeah.
Grishenko, the programming genius behind the main systems of the GoldenEye satellite who sells out Tianus. Then you get other villains, and I just want to call out, this is my favorite thing about manuals, I think in general, is this is the only place where in the friends, enemies, and villains sections that they give you a little thing saying, try and find these 4 villains. They just call that out. I think that's very exciting. Try and find them. They're just collectible guys.
Little
Jaws, who's
tease, yeah.
yeah, Jaws is an arch villain. He's 8 feet tall and virtually indestructible. Avoid him at all costs, which they just told us to try and find him, but I don't know. I don't know who to trust anymore.
And you have to too in
Yeah,
that level, you know.
yeah.
So it's like, you know.
Good luck avoiding him. You have Mayday, who's a slim target with a sharp draw, a lethal adversary. Baron Samedi, I don't know how to pronounce
You know,
got
I've
that one
seen
wrong.
the movie and I don't even know actually.
I'm
I
just
think
gonna go
it's
first name basis.
70,
Baron. My
Baron.
my friend Baron. His countrymen fear his skill in the black arts, but he's equally at home with with more conventional weaponry. He's pretty good with guns too. Odd Job is a diminutive villain sporting a bowler hat. He's small and deadly. And that's where most of this ends. I will quickly run to the tips for success section at the very end. Um, some weapons that normally fire, and I think this is where we might find our lies, our false newses, as it were.
I do want to say this is one of my favorite types of sections in a
Mhm.
manual. One that always sticks out is The Legend of Zelda on the NES. Like, gives you very specific hints that you probably should get in the game, but it's almost kind of cool. Like, you get it, and it's like at the end of the manual after you're already like, all right, I just want to play the game. They're like, you know, I can't even remember what specific ones because I mix them up with ones in the game, but there are like crucial tips in the game. I don't know if these are crucial, but I just like that part of the manual where they're like, here's some good tidbits, some good tips.
Like, here's some stuff that you will absolutely that will absolutely ruin your enjoyment of the game if you haven't read to this point. So good luck. I did a manual recently for as a quick aside for I did a manual. I read a manual. I'm just doing stolen valor. Yeah, I'm doing a manual. I read a manual for Star Tropics on the NES, and I didn't know this until I got
yeah.
a copy, and I was like, it's stupid. Yeah, you have to dip it in water to give them a code in the game, which is just something I'm really surprised Nintendo signed off on. Like, I'm pretty blown away that they were like, you have to dip this thing in water to get further in the game. But I think that's pretty cool. So I'm also a big fan of that. Manuals blocking you from moving forward unless you know specifically where to look is cool.
I mean, like
Aren't there-
every PC game of the 80s,
Yeah.
pretty much. Like you have to use this like weird spinner thing, or
Mhm.
you know, you have
Like anti-piracy, right?
yeah. I mean, that's what it was, and yeah, it's wild, like just how crucial manuals were, like 100% for PC gaming, but even in console gaming at the time. Which is wild because there was like a full rental market, but so many games like really required you to actually have the manual to progress past certain points. But you would also one of my other favorite things when like collecting is the you know, places would either like have their own like photocopy of the manual in there that they would put in the rental copies, or they would like type up their own like tips thing, you know, that imagine having like that job, like as a kid, you're like or a teenager, you're in like some like small town like mom and pop rental shop, like playing these games so that you can before they get put on the shelves, so that you can type up the like the tips for it for when people rent the game. Or yeah, like yeah, that stuff is so cool.
It's
like
so neat.
Dedication, like real love. I think being I'm sure, like I feel like you have to like care about it to do that, because like who at like a rental store probably cares that much to do it. I don't know.
So I will say that my understanding of that situation, and I could be wrong. So I'm going to say this, and I could be wrong. My memory of this is that one of the ways that Nintendo, we'll call it slightly litigious company, would try to take down. So they didn't want people to rent video games, right? They didn't want people to rent the games. They wanted them to buy them. But they didn't have any legal standing, was my understanding, of to say, no, you can't rent these things out. You bought the game, you can do whatever you want with it, kind of. There was something to do with the manual and being able to distribute the manual as part of that. And that might be where the rental stores would get into some trouble, was maybe not the game so much, but the manual. And so there was a like little cottage industry that sprung up, making sort of bespoke manuals to put in there to, keep the rental stores from bearing some liability. I forget where I heard that. I've heard it a number of times, and so I feel fairly comfortable with that, but I could be wrong on some of the details.
Yeah, because there were the plastic cases, and Nick, I don't know if you remember these, but the clamshell cases that would have like this kind of like uniform like type of manual that you would get sometimes, and I definitely remember those as a kid, but I also remember renting from places where it would be like a typed out, like printed on a dot matrix printer like type thing, because I don't think everyone had like the contacts to, or wanted to buy in to like paying for the, those like specific cases and stuff. Yeah.
So even though it maybe wasn't a labor of love, and it was because Nintendo might have sued them if not, it's still somehow more charming. Like I imagine what you were just saying about someone working for Rare or whatever, like having to type up the manual. Now I kind of love the idea of someone who just works for some random a third party that now has to type up a manual.
Which might be a person in a job that I just made up. But who can even fact check these things anymore? So I'm going with that.
We didn't actually read the tips, did we?
No, we didn't read the tips. We got up and before I go pick up my kids from school and tell them what I did today, which was get to read some cool manuals, we can read some of the tips for success. These are important tips. And again, I don't know how true any of these are. Some weapons, because I don't remember this being the case. Some weapons that normally fire a short burst of bullets will fire a single shot when using the aim. The single shot will be more accurate than a burst because the weapon's recoil spoils your aim when you fire continuously. I've never heard of it called spoiling your aim, but I like that too.
Yeah, not sure of the truth of that. So
throwing knives can be thrown more quickly if you prepare yourself. That's not really a tip. That's just sort of like general best practices.
That's, again, more life advice. Yeah.
Yeah. These are, you know what? That's a good point. They don't say that these are tips for success within GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64. They just might mean for like your Tuesday afternoon.
Wow.
These
are all very transferable.
Yeah. These are life lessons. Some of the high power weapons are able to shoot through objects, including doors. I like that because also some of the enemy characters are capable of clipping through the doors, so it kind of goes both ways, which is nice.
You do cool. An arm come through sometimes.
Yeah. The guy's face coming through. And then leaning is ideal when under heavy fire. Stand behind a corner or column, then lean out left or right and fire off a few rounds. And that brings us to the end of GoldenEye. Yeah. Fire off a few rounds. Have a good old time.
There's one thing I gotta point out. Our friend Connor would be upset if we did not point out on this last page. Again, another picture of Brosnan pointing the gun right at you, but this is one of the hardest pictures of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it starts with copying any Nintendo game is illegal and is strict prohibited. Like, it's like if you pirate this Nintendo game, Pierce Brosnan will come to your door.
I love that.
And he's licensed to kill.
Yeah. One more. I'm just gonna call it a lie. Here. there's no talking around it. Look on the multiplayer game page, opposite the tips for success. Look at the four screens. What do you notice?
Oh, that's got the different bond, right? That was, didn't they originally intend that you could play as all the bonds? And I believe that would be in the top right. Is that not Sean Connery in his
in the
white dinner jacket with the red carnation?
Yeah. and literally the only reason I know this is from reading this this Boss Fights books GoldenEye book. But yeah, I remember reading that and being like, whoa. I mean, first of all, like it sucks that they weren't able to get all the bonds in there.
Yeah.
Which I think like later Bond games have had that maybe in the multiplayer, but I've never played another Bond game multiplayer past GoldenEye.
Yeah.
But
we have the ability. We have a Game Shark. I think you can access it through Game Shark.
Oh,
so maybe
nice.
we need to
because it is still on the cartridge. Yeah.
Nick, thank you for taking us through that. I hope we did justice to your format. I appreciate you kind of letting us borrow the gimmick.
Oh, you kidding me? This was the most fun one yet. I had a little bit of a lag on my audio, so I probably cut everybody off a ton. But this was the most fun. This was the most fun one yet.
As I
right, that's good.
Over and over again. This is what cutting someone off sounds like. What I'm doing right now, which is not what you did.
All right, good.
This was a lot of fun. It was great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I've been talking to you. I think we're gonna do more if you're down in the future. So
I would be so beyond down. This was so much fun. I love what y'all are doing, and I'm so grateful to be have been invited on to do this. This was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we got to look at so much Pierce Brosnan together. I think that was great.
Yeah, so many great pictures. There are even more. I'm gonna post them just so I'll post in a chat and tag you so you can see the other. They didn't even use. Maybe it would have been immersion breaking, but him and Xenia together, that's a cool shot. Like, come on.
There we go. in our Brosnan posting era, in our Pierce posting era.
Pierce posting. And Ryan, thanks for being down to do this as well.
Always.
You've come on and we've got to do fun kind of unique things with you with this and the VHS reading, and if if you ever have any other weird out of the box things you want to do for an episode, you can invite yourself on like you did with the VHS.
Famous last words.
No, you did invite yourself on. I know you said you.
I was like, hey, are you doing an episode about this? If not, you should, and I'll do it.
One thing I appreciate about the both of you, and I hope you don't mind, but for some of these games, I've said this a million times, but GoldenEye and coming up we'll have Diddy Kong Racing. There's so much demand. People want to talk about these games, and I feel like you guys have provided, with Star Fox in this game, lanes to get other people on and get their experience with the game and their backstory. And so we're definitely open to doing that some more. And I appreciate you guys kind of being down to do that. And I hope you don't feel like you're being cheated out of
being on the big show. I'll be on the episode of Rampage, so other people can be on Dynamite. That's fine.
This is not Rampage, no. This is our collision.
It's not a pay-per-view.
But if you want to feel like you're out of the main show, you can listen to some Spice Girls or whatever, and get in that mindset before.
Yeah, is Hanson still in the
Hanson's
top
hanging
five
around?
During the GoldenEye Manual era?
One thing actually, the week after GoldenEye, that Mariah Carey video was #1, and it was Bond themed video. So I forgot Honey, by Mariah Carey.
Yes, I remember that one.
That's going to be mentioned on our next episode. But for anyone who's listening now, go watch it. It's a perfect companion to our Bond talk. Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug before you go? I know you got to go pick up your kids, Nick.
They can wait. They can hang out at school a little while longer.
They're fine. They're fine right now. No, the only thing to plug is I just like, if you're listening, go out and play these games. They're cool, and they're interesting, and they're different than a lot of other stuff. And there are really no other games quite like them. So yeah, it's they're super neat. I'm grateful that they're here.
Hell yeah, yeah.
Does that count as a plug?
Yeah, plugging. Well, like I said earlier today, you gotta tell everyone about the Nintendo 64. Make sure they know about it for sure.
The fun machine.
Play it loud. Ryan, how about you? Anything you want to throw out there?
No, I'm just on Blue Sky. Just on Blue Sky.
All right, well, awesome. All our stuff's in the description, and of course, we've got to thank our Millennium Star patrons over on patreon.com/flashback64. We've got Underlined Fee, Paul Quaid, Jeremy Aber, and Infection Vorm. Thank you so much. Do you have any parting words, McKenna? Closing statements? I think we're good, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get out of here. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.